Mr. Speaker, nearly every week that this House has been in session this year, I've come to the floor to talk about the need to end hunger now. 14 speeches later, I still hear from some of my colleagues who doubt that hunger is a problem in the 21st century here in this country, the richest, most prosperous nation in the world. Well, Mr. Speaker, I hope that anyone who doubts that we have a hunger problem in America has a chance to read the article by Eli Saslow in Sunday's Washington Post titled Driving Away Hunger, subtitled In Rural Tennessee, A New Way to Help Hungry Children, a Bus-Turned-Bread Truck. Mr. Speaker, this is a heart-wrenching story of hunger, where children of all ages have trouble getting enough food in the summer months in rural Tennessee. It breaks your heart. The article may focus on a small area in rural Tennessee, but it really tells the story about the 50 million hungry Americans in this country, and more specifically, the 17 million kids who are hungry in this country. And the blame shouldn't be cast on these poor Americans who are doing their best to make ends meet. Consider the Lagren family portrayed in this article. Jennifer, a mother of 5, works full-time as a cook in a nursing home. Yet her kids don't have enough to eat because Jennifer only makes $8 an hour. SNAP helps during the school year when kids get to eat 2 meals a day at school. Combined, these 5 kids, ranging from 14 years old to 9 months old, ate a total of 40 free meals and snacks at school every week. But there's very little help during the summer months when school is out of session. While the $593 of food stamp allotment lasted throughout the month during the school year, Jennifer only had $73 in food stamps left, with 17 days to go in the month that she was interviewed for this article in the Washington Post. And if that weren't enough to convince people about this ugly side of hunger, consider this heartbreaking paragraph from the article, and I quote, "Desperation had become their permanent state, defining each of their lives in different ways. For Courtney, it meant that she had stayed rail thin, with hand-me-down jeans that fell low on her hips. For Taylor, 14, it meant stockpiling calories whenever food was available, ingesting enough processed sugar and salt to bring on a doctor's lecture about obesity and the early onset of diabetes, the most common risks of a food stamp diet. For Anthony, 9, it meant moving out of the trailer and usually living at his grandparents' farm. For Hannah, 7, it meant her report card had been sent home with a handwritten note of the teacher's concerns, one of which read, 'Easily distracted by other people eating.' For Sarah, the 9-month-old baby, it meant sometimes being fed Mountain Dew out of the can after she finished her formula, a dose of caffeine that kept her up at night." End quote. Mr. Speaker, this is all taking place in rural Tennessee. That's right, Mr. Speaker, hunger doesn't just exist in urban areas. According to USDA statistics, rural areas are poorer than urban areas. And according to the latest USDA data, households in rural areas were more likely to be food insecure. While 14.9% of all households were food insecure in 2011, 15.4% of households in rural areas were food insecure. And let's look at the SNAP statistics. While 16% of all Americans live in non-metropolitan areas, 21% of SNAP beneficiaries live there. 10% of the rural population relies on SNAP, compared to 7% of the urban population. Children under 18 make up 25% of the rural population, but they are 40% of the rural population using SNAP. These statistics show empirically that hunger is a problem in rural America. Sunday's article paints a terrible and disturbing picture about hunger in rural America, and together they show why we must commit ourselves to end hunger now. That's why it is so disturbing to me that so many of my Republican friends seem hell-bent on cutting huge amounts from the SNAP program, literally throwing millions of Americans off the program. It shows a stunning ignorance of current reality, and it shows a callousness that, quite frankly, is beneath this institution. During the recent debate on the Farm Bill, I heard a number of my colleagues from the other side of the aisle demean the poor in this country and diminish their struggle. I heard rhetoric from some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle characterizing these Americans who are struggling in poverty in inappropriate and demeaning ways. It was offensive, some of the rhetoric that was spouted here on this floor. I urge all of my colleagues, Democrats and Republicans alike, to reject any assault on the SNAP program. Mr. Speaker, we have an opportunity to end hunger now, but we must take it. We need some leadership. We need leadership in this House, but we also need leadership from the White House. In order to get this done, we need the White House to host a conference on food and nutrition. We need the President to bring the best and brightest minds from every corner of this nation together, lock them in a room, and direct them to come up with a plan. It is not hard. We need the political will to end hunger now. This issue needs to be more of a priority. I yield back.